Okay, let's look at Chapter 16, the demand for resources, mainly labor resource, because that is the biggest expense for many businesses. A service business will have over 50% for labor cost, and manufacturing should probably not go more than 30% for labor cost. So we know that labor cost obviously determine money income for households. Businesses have to minimize cost because they have competition, and resources do flow to their highest valued uses. The more valuable the labor resource is, the more they can expect to get paid. So we're going to look at a couple important definitions here. Resource demand is derived demand. It's derived from the resources it produces, or derived from the product it produces. For example, we buy automobiles, so we have a demand for auto workers. And we're going to first look at the perfect competitor. I ask you to read over chapter 10, table 10.1 to familiarize yourself with the perfect and imperfect competitors. The pure competitor, perfect competition, is where you have many sellers and buyers and no one can influence the price. So that cotton farmer can produce as much or as little cotton as they want, but they will have to accept the market price. They're the only one market structure that is a price taker. The imperfect competitors like monopoly, oligopoly, where you have a few sellers, and the monopolistic competitor all have some control over price, and they do have to reduce the price to sell more output. The perfect competitor does not have that choice. They have to accept the market price. So the demand for the resource labor depends on the product it's used to produce. Let's add a couple of definitions. The marginal revenue product is a change in total revenue divided by the change in the resource quantity, which is just adding one more worker, marginal revenue product. So remember, total revenue from chapter 6 is just price times quantity. And we're adding one more worker every time. The marginal resource cost, MRC, is just the change in total cost divided by adding one more worker. So what the marginal resource cost becomes is our wage rate. It's the same thing. It's $14 an hour or $15 or whatever it is. It's the cost, what those workers are going to cost. So the rule is we're going to hire workers up to the point where marginal revenue product is greater than or equal to the marginal resource cost or wage rate. So the worker has to bring more to total revenue than they cost. So hire additional resources, workers, as long as the additional product produced adds more to total revenues than the cost. So what will happen is our marginal revenue product becomes the demand for labor. Now, we graphed demand for labor in chapter 3, and it would look like this next slide. But let's first look at the first 3 columns there. You should be familiar with this from the first part of chapter 9. We looked at the units of labor, which is what that is in column 1, 1 worker, 2 workers, etc. And the total product 1, 2, or 3, or 4 or more could produce. So 1 worker could produce 7, 2 together 13, 3 together 18, 4 together 22, and so on. But our marginal product, the product 1 more worker adds, it's always the same for the first one, 7. The difference in 7 total product and 13 total product is 6. So the second worker, its marginal product is 6. The difference in 13 and 18 from 2 to 3 workers is 5. So the marginal product of the third worker is 5. And we know this is a perfect competitor, pure competitor, because the price is $2. The perfect competitor can sell as much or as little as they want, but they have to charge $2. They can't get a penny more from that because there's so many others selling for $2. So now let's look at column 5, which is column 2 times column 4, just the total product times the price. 7 times 2 is 14. 13 times 2 is 26. 18 times 2 is 36. 22 times 2 is 44. And so on. Our total revenue is going up. But the marginal revenue product, the change in total revenue from adding one more worker, is in column 6. So one worker, the marginal revenue product is $14. So if we look down at the bottom graph, that means that if the wage rate is $14, this firm could afford to hire only one worker. The marginal revenue product of the second worker is $12.